right, so let's talk about Marvel Zombies, right? This is the
Sure.
newest animated TV series, miniseries, sorry, courtesy of Marvel Studios and Disney Plus, right? This is an offshoot of a particular episode. I think it was in the second season of What If, yeah, where they
Yeah.
took the let me just say the cult favorite Marvel Comics miniseries, Marvel Zombies, which I am marginally familiar with because I never got around to
Right.
reading it, right? But I just thought this, even though I don't know the full premise, I just thought the idea of taking your favorite superheroes and supervillains and turning them into zombies, into flesh-eating zombies. I thought that was like a really cool idea, right? So you have zombie Iron Man and zombie Captain America and stuff like that, right? And zombie Hulk and all that kind of stuff, right? And you just see what happens, right? So it's an Elseworld story, or in this case, a what if scenario, and it worked, right? It's just I wish that I was more familiar with the material itself, right? But there was that one episode in season 2 of What If, and I enjoyed it for what it was, right? And it just what really made it work for me is that it built from the Marvel Studios, the MCU, sorry, it built from what it is we
Right.
know, especially with the incorporation of Scarlet Witch as the main villain. I think she was the main villain in that, right? So it's cool
Right.
that she is the main villain in this
But
new one here, So
yeah, no, she was, yeah, and that she felt like a side thing, but like she's still really dangerous. She didn't feel like the main thing. It
okay,
still felt like a general zombie threat. But it's established that she's pretty much the main, threat, because she's controlling everything, and with her being undead, it don't really matter.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And well, okay, so I'm not sure if it was in season 1 or season 2 when this episode happened, right? So yeah, if I
Off
got
the top of
wrong,
my head, I really can't remember. Off the
yeah,
top of my head, I really can't remember. Yeah.
yeah, I just
I don't
remember.
look. Yeah, I don't look it up.
Yeah, I just remember enjoying it because it was fun. And I was like, hey,
Yeah. Right.
we're doing the Marvel Zombies thing. Great, right? But yeah, I did
Right.
not expect that we were going to have this show here, right? But here we are. I remember when the trailer dropped and, people's minds were blown, right? And I'm going to talk about that TV Emmy rating because once again,
Right.
Marvel Studios always like to put this because the last time they did this, where they teased that, oh my god, TV Emmy was with Echo. I'm not going to talk about Daredevil Born Again because that one felt like the TV Emmy was rightfully deserved, right? Because I mean, it's drawing from the Netflix Daredevil series, which was TV Emmy, right? And rightfully so. But it's the whole teasing of, oh my god, we're going to be so edgy, man, and all that kind of stuff. And I will explain if this show pull it off or not, right? But point is, we have this miniseries here, similar to Eyes of Wakanda. It's 4 episodes.
Right.
So, we got this last week, time of us recording this here, and, we're finally going to talk about it. So, yeah, Ricardo, if you don't mind, just want to share, a brief synopsis on what Marvel Zombies is about.
So yeah, we it is the same continuity of that episode. Although we see it from a different perspective and a different time period. Where we follow Riri Williams, they call she Miss Marvel, and Kate Bishop. Start with them, basically surviving the zombie apocalypse and having to make sense of the situation. And then they get some information, some a plot device that basically supposedly could help them, and they have to go to this part of the central desert or something along those lines. And yeah, that is the impetus. And yeah, they start off by, well, yeah, I don't know if it's a big spoiler to say this if you don't watch it at all. Yeah, they start off by killing off one of the guilds, right? And well, they kill off the second guild too. And what did the main character? Well, presumably, I forget the actress name. Miss Lani, I think.
Iman Vellani.
Ilan Falan, thank you. Right. And yeah, they focus on her as the kind of the point of view character for what going on in respect to this. And yeah, they make it work. What they do is just do some nice alternative MCU stuff from what we know. Sad, yeah. I'll get into what the problem with this is. Not a major issue, but it is a problem for me at least. Yeah, they focus on other characters. They do, the first episode focuses on the Black Widows and their whole side character thing. And then yeah, it builds from there with episodes 3, 4, and 5, right? Well, 2, 3, 4, and from there 2, 3, and 4. Sorry. Yeah. I like this. It's actually really well done, and I could not care about it because the main timeline or whatever it is not really engaging me. Like all of this is based off of
Same.
based off of phase 4 and phase 5 stuff. So I kind of don't really care, even though I think this is excellent. It's good. It's really good stuff, and I'm not invested. because none of this is like, oh right, is this reference in a movie I kind of was like meh about, and it reference in another movie I was kind of meh about, and reference in another movie I was kind of meh about. It's like all of it is they're trying to build up the Phase 4 and Phase 5 stuff, but none of very little of Phase 4 and Phase 5 I cared about, to be honest, right? Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But it's still good. Like if you invest in it, much like with Aizawa Wakanda, if you have to be invested in the conceit it is, but if you're not invested in the conceit, you won't care. That's how I felt about this. It's not bad. In fact, it's pretty good. They make a bunch of like really interesting calls, and the big thing is the direction in this, because the action and all the action sequences and fighting was great in this. Like actually like legit excellent. But again, not interested in the world or anything like that. So like the second episode opens with a Shang-Chi reference point. It starts off with those two characters and they focus on them. And like, well, I like Shang-Chi, but I don't love Shang-Chi, so it's like, all right. I mean, I kind of like them, but yeah, it boils down to that. Like, that's the whole thing. If you was super into Phase 4 and 5, or you really like Phase 4 and 5, you'll really like this. If you didn't care for Phase 4 and 5, then this really like does all the heavy lifting for you to care about it, and it does that because it's really well done and well made, and whoever was involved, everybody involved in this, did their work. Yeah, they did their homework. It's really well done, well put together, good voice acting. I like the story for what it does. Well, they do the big thing, which was, again, should have been a movie by now. And again, if it had a real world movie, we would have cared, which is, well, Blade, right? He's really central, or he's a big part of this. And I couldn't get myself to give a shit because we don't have a proper MCU Blade, right? We never really
Exactly.
see,
And if I
never
can
see that
stop
in
you there,
action.
right? So for two things, right? Slight spoiler: he goes by Blade Knight. Yes, Blade Knight, because
Well,
yes,
right.
yeah, because he.
Again, if
Huh.
if if we had a proper MCU Blade, I would have give a shit about the alternative version of the Knight, because they kind of give a kind of explanation as to why he's Blade Knight, kind of. But again, if we had a movie or some
Yeah.
midnight,
Mm.
what is midnight, I forget what it is,
Midnight
midnight
Suns.
Midnight Suns. If you had a Midnight Suns movie, and a real decent movie, and I was familiar with, and we get to see Oscar Isaac and Mahershala Ali interact,
Yes.
then I would have give a shit.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
don't.
And
Don't
and
have
and
that,
and,
so I
and
can't give a shit.
And speaking of Mahershala Ali, I was let down. Genuinely let down, believe it or not, that it wasn't even his voice. Because when I saw the
Well,
character, I was like,
I
I
yeah,
wish
yeah, yeah.
it was him, because it looked like
Of course,
Mahershala. Like, it looked like him,
yeah,
right?
they
I
yeah,
realized
they designed it
is
split.
this guy, Todd Williams. I'm like, oh
Todd Williams,
man,
right?
like
No,
really?
which I heard when I saw, that's the first thing I was looking for when I saw the trailer. I was like, oh shit, did they get Marshall first? Now I see his name, and I like, all right, well, did, and then I see, and then I actually like directly look up who's the voice. And yeah, Todd Williams, yeah, he's a solid enough character voice actor, solid working horse type figure, in the
Yeah, he
industry.
is.
So that guy did, yeah, good, he pretty good. But so I was like in my head, I like, well, yeah, I suppose they had to do that. But I knew in the back of my head they couldn't. I doubt they'd get Marshall a green light for it. Especially knowing behind the scenes, I hear all the drama and him just not being satisfied with that whole situation. As it is now. So that's the sad part, is that it's the muddy meta narrative and the real world stuff kind of messing them up with this project. Because now I just not interested. But if you just treat it as is, this is pretty good. Like I had a lot of fun with this. It's like really good storytelling. I enjoyed for what it was. But I just not invested. None of it was had me investing, because it's not that it's not good. It's just all the stuff that it's hanging off of is just weak foundations in that meta narrative sense. And yeah, that's it. But for the storytelling, good. I'll rate it, and it'll probably get the best of the year for me. But I had to give a shit, and I couldn't get myself to give a shit. I struggled to get through this more than I struggled to get through what you call it, Alien Dude. Like in terms of pacing, like it's good, but I'm not invested. Is what it is. Um, it basically that, and it fall down to that main conceit. And yeah, it slightly frustrating, given like I would say mismanagement, because it's not like these movies not making money or anything like that, but like it could be in a better space. Like, admit that. The MCU now. But yeah, we'll see going forward, and see whatever going on with Doomsday or whatever it is, right? But yeah, uh, good. Enjoy it. All the reveals about the characters. Like, well, in episode 3, they get into they focus on the narrative that we saw from the What If episode. Um, so on and so forth. And then the ending is like, oh, there's a real nice, weird, trippy ending that could have it's a weird cliffhanger, but I'm not hating on it. Like, it's like, oh, that's an interesting idea of a cliffhanger. Given that what they bring into it, because it's not just the zombie stuff. Like, they bring in the Infinity Stones, and they do something real weird with Hulk. And like, I always a vibe in all of this, but not interested, not invested, don't care. Because of the mainline stuff that I was supposed to care about, not there. And it's a shame. It's a damn shame, because there's a lot of talent going into it, but none of the energy is there. Sorry to say it, but that's how a lot of these like big franchises work. If you don't make it work, it'll fall apart for what it was. Yeah. We will see. But yeah, as it is, I dug it. I actually, this was a lot of fun, and you'll like it for what it is. That's how I feel.
Well, I guess I'd be the one to rain on People Parade here, right? Because as much as I really would enjoy this, and I really, really would enjoy this way, this felt like a letdown for me. And I'll explain why, right? Without giving out too much, spoilers and whatnot, right? So just getting good out of the way, right? Voice acting, great as to be expected. Animation solid as well. The fight scenes kick so much ass. Blade Knight, just comes through with some of the best moments in this. They had the goal
Yeah, they
to
give
have
like
me do
they
like a
start them
sped up fight scene similar to like his fight with friggin' Deacon Frost from the first Blade.
right,
I'm like, what?
right.
That's
No,
where
but
we're
they had
going?
they had that fight with well, I assume that character is Ghost, right? A zombie version of Ghost,
Yeah,
where she
it's
was
her. It's her.
right. So that opening that part was real hard. Like, oh, they're cooking here, and
Yeah.
again because we don't have a live action Blade to bounce this off of, I kind of don't care. That's the sad part about this. That's how I feel
Yeah.
about this media. Right, that's the problem with the MCU. The MCU needs the that reference, but it needs its sacred timeline, as they say, to
No,
bounce off.
that's
And
true.
if you
That's
don't care
true.
about that,
Yeah.
you're not going to reverse. You're not going to reference back to that in some way. I don't hate on it. It's good stuff. Back I get into it. It's one of the same reasons why say something like Deadpool and Wolverine don't really work all that well for me, because like it's not doing anything to the main narrative. Even though that movie I think just generally bad except for all its cameos. But you get the point, right?
Okay,
If
okay. I love it, but I understand why
right.
you wouldn't like it. That's fine. Yeah.
Right. But you get the point, right? Like it still need to like get me invested in the main narrative as is. I mean, we will see what they're doing with Doomsday, if they're trying to fix this or they address this. Doomsday, everything have to Spider-Man, to be fair, because I don't know what they're gonna be doing with this. But it in a way is a weird place they're in right now. And so I'm not too like where they're going with this. But anyway, continue. You continue, sorry.
Also, at the time of us recording this, prayers up for Tom Holland, because
Right,
he
yeah, I heard
suffered
something.
concussion, on set, right? So
Yeah.
prayers up.
I heard it wasn't that bad, but it's still like, yeah, you had to,
It's,
watch that, because some
yeah.
people say, oh, he's almost crack and things like, nah, it's just a concussion, like
Nah,
that, which is still a
I hear
problem.
the
Yeah,
word concussion, I get freaked out with that, but that's just me.
which is still a problem. But I hear somebody said skull crack, like what, like what with all that way, but it's mostly like bullshit type, and get it to click on the article, right? It's some bullshit, right? Usual thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Right. Well,
yeah, I don't know, like
yeah, but that's just a move on, right? So, and I all right. So I do like how it pulls from Marvel Studios movies, right? It does pull from movies and TV shows that we don't care about. So like with Shang-Chi, for example, like okay, like I straight up forgot that Aquafina, who I like, it was in that show. I was like, hey, right, he was in that. Wow, I forgot. Wow. And then like with the Corporation of Hope, I was like, all right, yes, Quantumania. I went to see that. I did see it right
yeah.
back in February of 2023, right? Okay, yeah. You know what I mean? So it's one of those shows that will constantly remind you, hey, these other shows exist, right? As you mentioned,
Right.
Ghost, for example,
Another
from
thing,
Ant-Man was,
yeah,
right?
another thing I'm wondering is how much of the Joel Jonathan Majors thing they had to deal with or get rid of narrative wise now. Like I'm not too sure. Because I get a feeling because the thing is they really wanted to like get excuse to get rid of the Kang storyline. I always got that feeling. Um because you would I think that they would have recast by now, right? Like look, I like Jonathan Majors, but he don't seem to be all that super important. Like I admit that no. So I wondering if a good bit to get cut from that. That's the problem. The problem is that this stuff so interactive that any small thing could f with the workflow going forward. Now. So I wonder if it's all of that. I don't know.
Yeah, and okay, so forgive me, folks, right? Because I love me Marvel Studios, right? But forgive me for this, right? As much as I understand the world of Marvel Zombies, right? Which is, the what if thing, so we have to throw any and every character from,
Right.
from the MCU into this, right? While I understand that, I felt that led to a lot of unfocused moments. Just everything is just all over the place in terms of the narrative and where it flows and whatnot. For example, it starts off with Riri and Kate and Kamala, right? And I actually do like Kamala being the main character in all of this, right? But then the Shang-Chi is true, and now you have this new thing going on. So Shang-Chi now doing the Mad Max thing. Now him and
Right.
Aquafina's character, and like okay, you know what I mean? So and then of course you have the Black Widow stuff. So of course you have Red Guardian, and you have Yelena, played once again by McGill, Florence Pugh, and all that kind of stuff. So it's all these things going on, right? And then Bleed Net, all these kind of things, right? But I felt like because of that, it just makes the story so convoluted now. In terms of just the characters who show up, where they are, what they have to do, all these things. And even like Kamala's mission, where is to take this device and use this to contact the Nova Corps, and then this thing happen, and this thing, and then Wanda shows up and all this thing. It just made things way, way too convoluted, right? Now I understand in terms of how What If is, right? Especially that last season, especially that finale, that series finale, right? Whereas, like, listen, if you don't know anything about these characters, whether it's the What If versions or the normal versions, you won't care at all, right? But in this case, it's like, all right, we're just gonna take everything, just put it in a blender, and just make a smoothie for you, and you just expect to sip that and be like, oh yeah, getting all my nutrients, man. Ooh, I don't have to worry about nothing, right? Yeah, it just throws so much at you, and at times I really felt like it was to the detriment of the story. Like for me, I felt it would have made sense if it just focused on Kamala and Blade Knight, and then okay, you bring in Shang-Chi, and you bring in the Red Guardian, stuff like that. Like you just bring them in, slowly but surely, you know what I mean? I understand we work with 4 episodes, right? But then it just gets to a point where in the 4th episode they just throw everything. They just throw everything at you, right? That to me was to the detriment of the show, right? Also, believe it or not, I can't believe I've seen this, right? But him out here, I felt like Kamala herself, right? And I love the actress, I love the character and whatnot, right? I felt like she should not have been the main character. I'll tell you why. Forgive me, folks. I don't want to sound like an unk. I want to sound like, like you just don't get it, man. It's Marvel Zombies. It's TVMA, man. The tonally, this show is all over the place, right? At one time, it wants to be dark. Next time, it wants to have the Marvel Studios kind of humor. So you always have to have the quips and everybody saying this and referencing that, right? And it just goes in and out so much times, right? And I like the idea that she is just the fangirl superhero who is put in this very uncomfortable situation. She wants to, save her friends. She wants to bring them back, but she also wants to do what she can to stop this whole zombie horde thing, right? I understand all that, right? But then there's all these moments, especially how every episode ends. Even the finale ends, where it always ends on such a dour note, though, and then they want to throw the sort of pseudo Infinity War music at the end. Even right now, the credits and all look like if it's trying to replicate the end credits for that movie to like okay, I understand, but oh gosh, man, pick a lane, pick a emotional lane. I understand it's the zombie stuff, right? It's that genre we're playing with, right? So yes, there's always this sort of like post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic vibe about it, right? But I just felt with having her, right, just being this hopeful character, and especially with how that finale ends, right? It's like, no, it just don't fit tonally, you know what I mean? So I just felt like if they wanted to go dark, they could have just stayed dark. If they wanted to be lighthearted, they could have stayed lighthearted. If they wanted to do both, then at least give her a proper ending. I'll get to that in a bit, right? So yeah, tonally, it was just all over the place in my opinion, right? They just had to be the Marvel Studios kind of thing. And I'll put it like this, right? It's as if, going back to like what I said about Echo, it's as if they wanted to keep things as quote-unquote family-friendly as possible. So even though it's zombie stuff and zombie violence and decapitations and all that kind of stuff, right? You still want to remind people, especially younger fans, that hey, it's still the characters that you know, man, and it's the people that you like. So let me throw in the jokes and all that kind of stuff. Ha ha ha, isn't that funny? And yet, like 5 minutes later, somebody could get ripped apart and you want me to be like, yeah, it's the same show. It was too much that was going on, right? You really should have picked a lane, right? And then about that finale, that cliffhanger just sort of rubbed me off the wrong way. It felt a little too weird. Here's the thing, I can't believe I've seen this too. Forgive me. It felt like an anime ending. It felt like a core coming to an end, and you'll know what I talk about, right? It have certain type of anime which this take things to escalate things to a pitch black level, very apocalyptic, very dark. I'll throw an example that came in top of my head, like Berserk. They try to do sort of like a Berserk ending where all hope is lost, and that's it, the end, and they have to make this choice, and whatever happens, but then it turned out to be the wrong choice. And the way how it ends, there's like, but wait, what, like, is this, are we going to get a second season? Okay, tell me it's a miniseries. if there's a second season already greenlit, okay, fine, I understand that. But you pitch this
Right,
as a
right, right.
miniseries, so I'm thinking, wait, is this the end? Is this gonna lead to
Right,
something in live action? Is this gonna lead to
right. You see
something in
right
an
there?
animation? We don't know. It just ends.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like, what
yeah.
kind of end
You
is
see
that?
right there? Yeah, the problem right is because the synergy gone. They have no workable synergy with the rest of the MCU. Because at no point I looking and thinking this gonna be tied with the live action stuff. It could. Like if they do that, all right, maybe that might be interesting. I doubt they would. But at best, I could see them doing something like just having a one-off, close or like, well, Doom will join the universe for 2 seconds and mash up all of them or some bullshit like that. That's the thing. I can't see them like linking it or just outright making a second thing. The problem is that because the live action stuff didn't tie together or work for a lot of people, man, and just was like, to be frank, just kind of half-assed, right? None of this connects in a meaningful way. And you saying how it's all convoluted and so on. So yeah, agreed. But I'm the kind of guy that will do the homework if I care about the core material, right? But the problem is that it not only forcing you to do homework, which is already bad enough, right? But at least the core material is what you remember. This is one reason why WandaVision works so well, because it making you do homework kind of, but then you like the original material or where this come from, right? That's why I know WandaVision because I remember Infinity War and Endgame. That's the problem. The core material is not there, and that meta narrative just not holding anybody at all. Like real people hating on like where the MCU is now. So I don't know. Like it's a weird space there, and it's shocking at how we reach this point where, again, let's be clear, the quality of this is good. Like I thought this was good if you care to do the homework and you care about the core material. If
Yeah,
you
yeah,
care,
yeah.
but too few of us do. Too few
That's
of
the
us do.
problem. Yeah.
And that is a frustrating thing. It's kind of like if a quick example off the top of my head, just to borrow from anime, is Bleach, right? In Bleach, a whole chunk of the story is referenced in a light novel, and the light novel is pretty good.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's a light novel, so I'm not going to sit down and read a light novel. It take me a hot minute to go and sit down and read a light novel just to keep up and piece together what the hell going on. I was like, yeah, why does the creator couldn't draw this? Like, why he
Right.
couldn't draw this? Or at least get somebody else to draw it. Like, why does that this can be drawn? It's a manga. I kind of need the media. Same thing here. Like, it's such a different conceit that it had me like, all right, well, I kind of invested, kind of, but like, I'm not invested in its own thing, and it can't sell itself as its own thing. At no point I thinking this gonna sell itself as its own thing. Like, yeah, so it's like, all right, well, moving on then.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it's that, right?
yeah, so that's to
Yeah,
wrap
yeah,
things up, right? So the best way I could sum this show up is that if this came before another season of What If, right? So let me just assume
right, maybe,
we got
right.
4 seasons instead of 3, right? If this came in between seasons, I'd have been like, sure, no problem. And then, well, the fourth and final season of
Right.
What If we had gotten a fourth one, would have tied that story, would have used that story to sort of finish up the whole narrative with the Watchers and all that kind of stuff, and then you could have had the big glorious ending. I would have had no problem with that,
But
with this show being a segue. But this one came after What If, right? So
right.
it's like, where is this story gonna go from here? So I mean, I think the only way for it to go is a season 2, but I haven't heard anything as yet, right? So I guess
Right.
for me, if it is greenlit, then when that next season comes, I could just watch this first season over and see how it flows, and then and see where the story goes. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's why it is. But I think it's because What If is already done, and it told its own
Right.
story and ended. It's
And,
like,
and,
well, where's this
exactly.
story going? I don't even know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I could still enjoy it for, hey, this is the MCU characters wilding out and being badasses and whatnot, right? Still,
Right.
but there's still moments in it that just have me still scratching my head, like this. Even by MCU standards, I still had a ponder on how this thing even possible. I'll throw one example and then I'll get to written, right? That Infinity Hulk thing, I was
Right.
like, how? Logically,
Well, it
how?
makes,
Because they give you like a
again,
minute explanation, not even a minute, like about
yeah,
30
no.
seconds. I'm like, how? Can you tell them
No, it
the
makes, it makes,
stones are inside this man? It's not like he have a
no,
gauntlet,
right, right.
The inside the man,
No,
and
right.
somehow he able
It-
to harness all this power. How? I don't know. But the
because
fight with him was badass.
it
I
kind of,
love it.
again. Let's be clear. The only reason I kind of aware of this is because of Endgame, right? Remember, Hulk is the one who did the snap, so he could handle the snap because it's gamma radiation. That's why. We know that. They say that.
Oh, right.
It's stuff like that. Like, again, you see how you have to do that kind of homework?
Yeah, it's
Like, for this.
the mental homework. I couldn't deal with it
Yeah.
with the show. I
Yeah.
felt like I shouldn't have to if they kept the story
Right.
simple enough, right? Without having to throw all these references to movies and the what if stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would have
You
a
had to do your
much
homework.
clearer story, but it was just too
Yeah,
much.
no,
It
yeah,
was too
yeah,
much.
yeah. You had to do homework, and that's the problem. Like, again, guys like me, I don't really mind doing the homework, kind of, but I had to be super invested in the source material or the case. Like, again, to be clear, the only reason I remember this is because they said so in Endgame. Hulk was the one who did the snap. Hulk did the snap, so here, therefore, Hulk is the only person who could probably handle this disaster thing. And I was like, oh well, they didn't stick to the zombie idea, but I'm kind of glad they didn't, and that kind of interesting in its own right. It's like, all right, fine, I suppose, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. Again, if Phase 1 and Phase 5, or we was living in a parallel universe where COVID didn't happen or something like that, and all of this work out the way, and we actually had a Blade movie, and we actually, and so on and so forth. If we get the stuff that we should have gotten, then none of this would have been a problem. None of this. But not the world we live in, and so they just run through with a product that is a secondary or tertiary product at best. Like, let's be clear about that. So I couldn't get into this. Wish it was. It's not that I can't tell them that it should be done better, because it's like, this is what we would get one way or the other now. Like, you have no other out for this. Um, so yeah, that's how I feel about it. It's still good. Like, if you once you into this and you could care about the meta narrative or the extraneous material, then all of this, it mostly works. Um, but other than that, I can get into it as it is. Rating, I still give it a good score, because, again, if you treat it as its own thing, it's fine. But you have to do all this mental homework about it for it to work. So I still give it a good score. Like, I still give it like a 8 out of 10, probably closer to a 7, to be honest, because it's like they had to, as you say, tonally it in a mess, and it had to go all over the place and pulling too much information for 4 episodes. That kind of stuff. If it was a little more simplified and toned down, like, say, uh like Eyes of Wakanda, which is like, okay, those are simple stories and a relatively simple narrative. You keep that as it is,
Yeah.
then fine. But I know what we got. Like, they had to drop too much in it, and it's like, oh yeah, right, Baron Zemo is in charge of this thing, and that's a base now. And like, all right, I mean, I suppose that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It works as a what? Yeah, it works as a what if. It's fine, but yeah, as I say, it really needed a stronger foundation, and it just didn't have that. Like, for me, I just not interested in any of the material that it pulls from, so I kind of don't care one way or the other. Like I kind of like Miss Marvel. I kind of like the Marvels a little bit. It was okay. It was like, it's not a disaster that weirdos at the internet tell you it was, but it still was like not that engaging. And yeah, it's have a good reason why that stuff didn't make money, right? Like, we get that, right? So it's all of that. Yeah, that's how I feel about it, and I could just kind of stop there. Yeah, rating like a 8 out of 10, probably closer to a 7, to be honest, but it's still get a good score. It's just a shame that the environment it exists in, is just too toxic for it to operate in. I'm not talking about like general toxic pop culture or anything like that. More like, yeah, the MCU not kind of weird space, and I can't see how they could pull off. I'm still, really impressed to see what they're gonna do with Doomsday. I really, like, I have no idea how they're gonna bring everybody back in the good graces, especially with James Gunn kind of cooking right now. So it's like that now, and like, we will find out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, for me, I will give this a lighter, decent 3 out of 5. It's eyed for what it is. I think also just lastly, what really holds the show back is the length of episodes, right? With Eyes of Wakanda, I understand, because you're introducing a brand new conceit to the MCU, and
Right.
it's almost like, okay, this is like the test run. So if the reception to that show is good, which I hope it was, I haven't really checked out to see if anybody else reviewed it, because I didn't see a lot of reviews for it, believe it or not, right? Which
No,
is
yeah, it,
strange.
it was they push it out again. You see, again, this is the all in meta narrative, and who going to push what and why, and how much advertising stuff should get. I thought Azokan was pretty good. The few people who did review it loved it. Like, they thought it was great, and here's another big factor. It was part of the secret timeline. It's part of the main timeline. So, like, all right, I'm invested in this because it's part of the workable continuity. Except they do this one thing at the end, which don't make any logical sense. But whatever, I don't care. It's space magic crap anyway. So whatever. But yeah, it's that. Like, for the most part, they play with that whole conceit about it now. So it's like, yeah, that's why I invested in it, because this is what has to happen as it is, and it leads to something more interesting. That's why Iso kind of mostly works for me. And it was simpler. They keep it simple. Like it says, oh, this is what's happening. This is who this was and why. And then they play with that. That's it. They keep it there. But they just throw so much at you, and it's like, all right, I don't remember who does do what and why this person's personality. And well, okay, it kind of makes sense why the personality might change here in this alternate scenario. And all right, I suppose. But it's a bunch of side characters of a side character of an alternate of a side character. Like, all right, you're drifting too far away from the core material. And unless you really care about these new characters, like, again, when she came Banani, she's a star, but she's not like, I don't know. And again, it could be me being Unk, and I don't think she's that big of a star. But is she that big of a star? I don't know. Probably some young person could tell me.
Well,
Maybe
not
I don't know.
exactly, because outside of these MCU movies, we haven't really seen anything. But
Anything, right?
one thing
Right.
I admire about her is that she's write comics. Like, she actually writes like little,
No, no, she do.
she
Yeah,
writes a
no, I know
little
about all that.
like Marvel comic stuff now. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. But yeah, outside of Miss Marvel and the Marvels, I haven't seen her in anything. So yeah.
No, yeah, she in it there, I ain't saying no, but my point is that, where they're gonna go with this in the long run, because I could see her in the long run sticking around with this stuff. I ain't saying no. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just whether or not how popular she is to say she's a star in her own right now. And what they're gonna do with that, that is the thing. And nobody, I am not getting any of that going forward, in terms of like how they're gonna hype this stuff, because the mere fact that they had to bring back Robert Downey Jr. as a character is like, they're really doing this. It kind of weird, right? Like, we don't know what the hell going on behind the scenes, with a lot of this, right? So again, we had to find out what the real world chicanery is to make it make sense. That's all I see. However, moving on. Next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I just felt like, it should have just been longer, like, like the same length, if you will, of a What If, right? Because I think the last season, or at least the seasons themselves, I think they run for like about 8 episodes, I think, right? Yeah, this should have been a 6 or 8, in my opinion. This should have run longer,
Right.
or just to throw this out there, what we saw in the finale here of this season, if you will, could have been the midpoint, and then we got the second half later on, or the episodes 5 to 8, whatever it is, or 5 to 6, could have just been, oh, this is what happens next, right? And then we could have had a much more satisfying end, right? One more thing, right? So I brought this up earlier, right? The whole TV Emmy rating, right? Again, forgive me for this, but I felt, okay, the only thing we get in here as far as pushing, as far as establishing that rating now, is just the zombie violence, and yet it just comes in spurts. You just have like a few moments of it, right? Because again, like, I'm just thinking, every time Disney Plus or Marvel Studios say, "Hey, this thing is going to be TV Emmy," I'm going to be seeing content where it's like, "Oh my god, they really mean it, Dread." But it's just, okay, ever so often there'll be some fight and characters get killed, as like few and far and in between, okay, but it's in between all the Marvel Studios goofiness and all that kind of stuff, and then you throw
Right.
the dark stuff and people die, and you want me to be like, "Oh no, they're dead," after you hammer laughing at
Right.
some jokes. It's like that now, again, pick a tone. That's why, for better or for worse, Daredevil Born Again worked, because at least it was like, all right,
Right.
we going deep into that whole, like, we learned we lesson from Echo, right? This is TVME. We're gonna give you TVME, right? I'm not saying that this show should be shock value for the sake of shock value, but no. But the trailer was kind of giving me like that kind of vibe. That, like, oh my god, we're really gonna go there. You know what I mean? But it was just a matter of just the fight scenes and characters being chopped up and whatnot, right? I'll throw an example. Like, when it came to swearing, 'cause I picked this up because I watch shows with subtitles on, right? There's literally a moment where a character says, "You mother," and it
Right.
buried in the mix now. Like, you hear any music and you see all the
Yeah,
action
yeah,
going
yeah.
on. So you wouldn't even know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
character would say it, and it happens so quick because the
yeah,
character dies. Like, wow,
yeah.
that's all
That's,
the,
that's
again,
pseudo censorship.
teasing me. Or the teasing me. Like, or they doing the echo thing again. If you only want to
Yeah.
go TVME, go all in. But again, you want to keep the quality and keep it the way it is, because you have the younger fans, and then we have the same tonal inconsistency that I was complaining about. Ah, that's all I had to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could close things off and then we move on.
Oh yeah, I kind of just say my last point about this. I mean, it's I just wish this was connected to something more engaging, as it was. It's not like it's bad, but because I'm not invested in any of this. And look, I can imagine some people who actually like Phase 4 and they like Phase 5 and they was really like engaged, and then like Phase 4, Phase 5 was objectively terrible or anything like that. It was just after thing, and then COVID happened and a bunch of real world shit happened that I just couldn't allow them to do what they needed to do all things considered. But yeah, that was the main problem with all of that. And that's it. So again, it's a sighting of a sighting of a sighting. It's kind of like with when you have a side character with Batman, and unless you can't shift away from a core conceit, everybody care about Batman. Cool. But if you do a side thing, a side character from Batman, it's like, well, that's not that interesting. You had to make a good story, like say Penguin or something like that. Because he's one character off from Batman. Right? He's a villain, great. We can't have a side character of a side character and then say we're gonna make a whole show. Like I'm sure she could hold it, but if they make like a Sophia Falcone show, that would work. Like you need to tie that to somebody or something like that, right? Because how many people know who Sophia Falcone is? And you could barely get away with it unless you make something of really good quality to have you work it. And that's what this felt like. It just felt like too many side characters or side characters. Nobody felt like a main thing, right? It's only because Thunderbolts came out, and yeah, but they still feel like side characters. And you see the problem, right? And so on and so forth. Like that's how I feel about this. Anyway, moving on. It's still good. It's still fine. But I wish we get something. I don't know what to do, because like I can't see any version of this being different. It's just the problem is that it in the wrong environment. There's good material in a bad space. If we had a Blade movie or we had other stuff, it would have worked. But we don't have any of that. So like yeah, I kind of don't care. But yeah, moving on. I mean, we'll see. Again, all of this will depend on of how Doomsday works out. That's the main thing with this, right? If Doomsday don't work out, then I think the MCU kind of cooked. But if Doomsday does work out, then alright, then they'll make it make sense. Because the simple fact is I have to care about this. I have to be thinking about the continuity. They have to have investment. And I simply not. It boils down to that. Anyway, next.
Yeah, next.